was supposed to be untouchable, the most dominant figure skater on the planet. A once-in-a-generation prodigy who had already rewritten what the human body could do on a sheet of ice. And then, in front of the entire world, he fell. Not once. His name is Ilia Malinin. And if you haven't heard of him, let me paint you a picture. Imagine being 21 years old, walking into a stadium filled with 20,000 screaming fans, with the weight of an entire nation on your shoulders, and being expected not just to compete, but to make history. That was Ilia's reality heading into the 2026 Milan Winter Olympics. This wasn't just any athlete. This was the man they called the Quad God, a title earned not by PR teams or media hype, but by actually landing a quadruple axel, a jump so technically complex that most coaches told their students it was physically impossible. He didn't just land it. He made it look easy. He'd won 4 straight US championships, 3 consecutive Grand Prix finals, 2 World Championship titles, back-to-back. The consensus across the entire figure skating world was this. The Olympic gold medal was not a question. It was a formality. But here's what nobody tells you about being at the very top. The higher you climb, the more terrifying the fall. February 13, 2026. Milan, Italy. The individual men's figure skating final. Ilia had just posted the highest score in the short program by over 5 points. The gold medal was basically already hanging around his neck. At least, that's what everyone assumed. Then the free skate began. And something happened that no simulation, no training camp, no number of practice runs could have prepared him for. The nerves hit differently that night. He would later describe it himself. The overwhelming flood of anxiety as he stood at center ice, the weight of a billion eyes, the suffocating pressure of a nation's expectations collapsing inward. The nerves just went. So overwhelming, he said. He fell. He fell again. 2 falls. On the biggest stage in all of sports. He finished 8th. The man who was supposed to change Olympic history walked off that ice without a medal. And the internet, merciless as ever, let him have it. Now here's the moment this story gets really interesting. Because what happened next is what separates champions from everyone else. Stay with me. Most people in Ilia's position would have disappeared. Gone quiet. Let the PR team handle it. But Ilia Malinin did something remarkable. He told the truth. He admitted he wasn't ready. Not ready for the spotlight. Not ready for that specific magnitude of pressure. Honestly, it's not a pleasant feeling, he said. So many eyes. So much attention. And then he said something that quietly stopped everyone who was paying attention. He said, "You learn more from losing than winning." He didn't just say it. You could tell by the way he said it, slowly, deliberately, that this wasn't a quote from a motivational poster. This was a man who had been forced to sit in the wreckage of his greatest public failure and extract something real from the rubble. He talked about the pressure of elite performance, of realizing mid-competition that certain things were simply beyond his control. But instead of surrendering to that chaos, he made a choice to bounce back. Keep going. You have to get up and skate the next day, he said. 6 words. 6 words that contain an entire philosophy on resilience, mental health, and success that most people spend decades trying to understand. But here's where it gets genuinely unexpected. Because when you ask Ilia Malinin what helped him rebuild his mental state after the Olympics, after the online hate, after the public disappointment, after carrying the weight of one of sport's great what-ifs, his answer isn't a sports psychologist. It isn't meditation or journaling or some elite performance protocol. His answer, he has 2 of them, named Mysti and Miu Miu. And he says, with complete sincerity, that adopting what he calls a cat personality changed everything for him. Think about what that means. A cat doesn't catastrophize. A cat doesn't lie awake at 3 a.m. replaying its failures. A cat exists fully in whatever moment it's in. Stretches when it wants to stretch. It sleeps without guilt. It doesn't care what the internet thinks. In a world that tells high performers they need to be machines, that they need to optimize every minute, monetize every hour, and feel guilty for every rest, Ilia Malinin, the most technically gifted figure skater in the world, found his breakthrough in the radical act of just being a human being. It's mainly just realizing you are human, he said. Not a robot. Not a performing algorithm. Human. And then he proved it wasn't just philosophy. It was strategy. 2 months after the worst competitive performance of his life, in front of the largest audience he'd ever faced, Ilia Malinin traveled to Prague for the 2026 World Figure Skating Championships. And he won. Not just won. He became the 3-time consecutive world champion, in what reporters called a remarkable comeback. The same hands that had gripped the ice in Milan now raised a gold medal in Prague. The same mind that had been overwhelmed by pressure was now the most composed on the ice. The same young man who had been 8th at the Olympics had, within weeks, reminded everyone exactly why he was called the Quad God. What changed? Not his jumps, not his choreography, his relationship with himself, his willingness to be imperfect publicly and continue anyway. There's a version of this story where Ilia Malinin becomes a cautionary tale, the prodigy who cracked under pressure at the biggest moment of his life. But that's not the story he chose to live. He chose the harder version. The one where you fail, you sit with it, you learn from it, and then you go back out there and you do the work anyway. You have to be unique. You have to be your own self, he said. And then other people will believe it. Maybe that's the most valuable thing a 21-year-old Olympic champion can teach the rest of us. Not a technique, not a system, just the quiet, radical discipline of being exactly who you are, and not stopping when it gets hard. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button because we cover stories like this every week. Drop a comment below. What do you think was the real turning point for Ilia? And share this with someone who needs to hear that failure isn't the end. It's just the beginning of the better story.